Get over the frustration that distorts your mind and learn how I drove through a snowstorm finding out that the life I'd saved was the wrong one. Welcome to No Bow Tie, where we conquer emptiness and frustration, discover our uniqueness, and live with unrelenting joy. I'm John No Bow Tie Swoboda, musician and author. They say if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. The story I'm about to tell you will tell you how my plans were shattered and had to pick up the pieces and rebuild. Our family had the best duo of dogs you could imagine. We were best friends. They were best friends. We did everything together. We would run, we would kayak, canoe. We would go out in the wilderness. They were great dogs, 65 pounds each. They could handle themselves. They had a stride. They could run like deer in the woods. They would come when they were called, and they held out for each other. They took care of each other. They took care of me. I took care of them. They were the best dogs. We had companionship. Getty and Amoeba. They were both Border Collie Australian Shepherd mix. I really enjoyed being a large dog kind of guy because I could wrestle them. I could run with them. I could, we had kind of a sparring partner all of the time. It was great. And they could fend for themselves. When we were out, I never really had to worry about if their size was a factor in their safety. The memories of racing across the prairie and watching them take off that would make fleeing deer look lethargic. Nothing could match the trusted joy that I felt that I could rely on when I was out with my two friends. In December of 2014, I was driving to a Christmas gig to play my guitar at a dinner party. And just as I pulled up to the residence, I got a phone call. And I could tell by the way it was ringing that something was up. I answered it, and my wife said that Amoeba had been hit by a car. Her voice was frantic. It was trembling as if she was begging. I ran into the party and I announced that I had an emergency. I left high speeds, panicking myself, raced across Kansas City to get to the animal hospital. I knew already that Amoeba was dead. I knew that there was no chance by the description that my wife gave me on the phone. It was too late to do anything. And time passed, the wounds began to heal. And we felt an emptiness in our heart, which of course leads us to looking for another companion for us and for Getty, the other dog. Of course, we're searching for another Border Collie Australian Shepherd mix to match what we had before. I wanted nothing but that freeing joy to be back in my life and in their lives so we could just be one big happy chemistry vibrating out in nature. And as you already picked up, I'm not a small dog kind of guy. I didn't want to break up their rhythm with it. I didn't want to have one lagging behind. I didn't want one to be more fragile than the other. I really wanted the perfect match, just like we had before. I expected it. Well, we found one. And the picture was an 8-week-old little puppy. And it's not perfect Border Collie Australian Shepherd mix. There was only one problem. The dog, the puppy, was 6 hours away. But much to our delight, they would deliver. They were going to bring that dog to us. As long as we scheduled it together, we would meet at a hotel and make the exchange, and we would be off with the puzzle piece to complete the family and renew the companionship once again. Well, I set out in February to pick that dog out. It was in a snowstorm. And I remember I got there and I picked the dog up in something, a box a little bigger than a shoebox. And that dog, I remember, looked at me in a puzzled kind of way. And I noticed the dog was a little smarter than an 8-week-old puppy should be. But I went about my merry way, happy to have the potential to regain that spirit again. Something else very exciting is going on. I'm releasing my first audiobook of the How to Be Unique Just Like Everybody Else book that was such a success and gave people so many insights. All you have to do is get on the newsletter at nobowtie.com/life, and we'll send you a private link to it before it is released to the public because you are a subscriber to the newsletter. So let's get back and see what happens with the new dog that I'm picking up. I got home and we just all loved the puppy. We named her Lainey right away. You know how it is when you name a dog, that dog is yours. The next day, I made an appointment to take her to the vet to get the shots and get her checked out. While we're at the appointment, Dr. Church, the veterinarian, came in and said, "This dog is not 8 weeks old. I don't know how old this dog is, but I'm going to say this dog is no less than a year." And she showed me some signs in the fur and in the teeth. And I was kind of puzzled as what she was telling me. And she looked at me knowing that I was looking for the perfect match, the perfect puzzle piece to complete our little group. And she said, "John, not only is this dog over a year old, this dog is not getting any bigger." And my jaw just dropped. I gasped. And believe it or not, I said out loud, "I am not going to have a small dog. I am not going to break up this party." And I looked over at my wife, and she was on the edge of tears, holding the dog, petting the little soft ears, and she had already fallen in love. Well, as I was getting ready to call the people and say, "You gave us the wrong dog," I changed my mind. I said, "Okay, we're going to love this dog into our family, and we're going to figure out a way to get that rhythm back." While it was a very frustrating episode, I tell the story to you because so often when things that you expect come up with a disappointment in your mind, we focus more on the disappointment and the frustration and what we can do to control what is uncontrollable. There really was nothing I could do. I couldn't give the dog back. They were 6 hours away. It would have been too much time, too much effort, and it would have broken my wife's heart. I wasn't going to go that direction. So instead of focusing on the frustration and the disappointment, I turned my attention another way. A friend of mine once hit me with a quote that it took me a while to digest it. He said, "Expectation cancels joy." And while I argued that, I thought, that is the core of a lot of loss of joy. When we expect something to happen and it doesn't, it's the expectation not being met that sends it spiraling down. It's not necessarily the event itself. It's the amount of expectation. You expect to get a certain gift and you open the package and it's not that gift. It's something else that is good, but it's not what you expected. You expect your wife or your husband or your children to do a certain something that's special and they don't. And you get a pain in your heart when all the while it was the expectation that you were addressing, not the actual events. It gets back to the quote at the beginning of the story about if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. In other words, life is going to change. And as it does, there are a lot of things that we are more wise to accept and do our best than it is to try to change what is inevitable. But the question remains what to do when you're met with that conflict, what to do when it's in your mind and the disappointment is real. It's okay to have those feelings, but keep it in perspective by measuring how much of your expectation is in the forefront of your feelings and how much that's distorting the paradigm that you have of the future. Things can work out even though your expectations aren't met. The very first thing that you want to do, and I could say the only thing you want to do, is just do your best with what you have. If a situation hurts more than it helps, you might have a tough decision to make, but the outcome could be better than it was before. Over 10 years later, I will say that keeping that small dog, Lainey, was one of the best decisions we've ever made. I will never say that losing the other dog was a good thing. No, any more than I would say that when you don't get what you expect, that's not a good thing. No, that's why you're disappointed by it. But in accepting that we couldn't have the other dog back. We couldn't have amoeba back. We nurtured what we had in front of us, and it turned out to be over 10 years of the most fun that I've ever had with a dog. And by the way, that little dog can run and jump and play just as well as any of the dogs that we've ever had. And I'll bet your biggest problem will be able to run, jump, and play once you sort out and keep things in perspective. Count the things that you value in it and do what you can about it, but always do your best. I'm excited to tell you that next week is the 50th No Bow Tie podcast show. Tune in because we're going to celebrate by sharing with you a story about my wife where she went from a bike ride to a hit and run situation that put her in the hospital and put our hearts on the line. Tune in and hear how we went from dark to light in that episode. Before I leave, I'm going to share with you another No Bow Tie musical arrangement that is distorted and is coined as musical blasphemy. Have a great week. See you next week. And be sure to subscribe at nobowtie.com/life.